Our American Buff Geese in the winter. On a -20 day, everybody's looking cold. Well, here are our American Buff Geese outside on a rather cold day. We kind of kick them out of the barn when it's nice enough and sunny enough just to let them get out and kind of do exactly like that one did and stretch their wings, etc. This time of year they don't do a lot, but you do want to make sure that you're feeding them fairly well. Now you'll see over here these couple are basically picking away at some second cut hay. This is something we find in addition to some of the other feeds that we do feed the geese during the winter. It's good to give them access to it. Now, as a bit of a, I guess, disclaimer here as we watch these couple eat, this isn't like grains. They don't hoover it in, and they do waste some. Now, when you have larger animals, like the horses or the sheep, that's not a terrible thing to have happen. So this is actually just a little flake we've put out here. We'll kind of pick this up at the end of the day. They'll have eaten what they want, and then this will probably go on to feed something else. So it's that similar to what we do with the rabbits. It's kind of the recycling. But we do find they will eat a fair bit given the opportunity, but there's no good way to give it to them, for lack of a better way to put it. But it certainly helps keep them entertained and well fed when it's cold. No changing of the who has access to it. So water in the winter is also important. Now, after raising ducks, for was that like almost 10 years, I think it was. The geese are nice because they still require the water, but they don't require as much, and they don't play in it as much. So you see these two here are basically getting a drink, and here comes another one. We try to keep them access to a little thing of water like that kind of all day. It tends to stay open as long as it's out in the sun and they're drinking out of it, but by the afternoon we usually have to break the ice out of it. Now, one thing about water in the wintertime for geese is, and you can kind of see they've already had their fun with it here, but it's good for them to be able to submerge their head, because they essentially will spread that water, and it helps keep their feathers in good condition. Because one of the big things about geese, I mean, goose down is a extremely valuable insulating natural fiber, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. And of course that's what's keeping them warm, but they need to keep their feathers in good shape to stay warm. So even though some of these geese do still shiver and they spend a lot of time sleeping, keeping their feathers in good condition is important. Similar to ducks, you just need to make sure that they can submerge their head, clean their nostrils out, and sort of spread that around on their bodies. I don't think anybody today is too keen on really taking a full-on bath in this cool temperature, but yeah, they're going to probably spend the rest of the day sitting out in the sun, just kind of going back and forth between sleeping and chewing on that second cut hay. So one thing we do find too about the geese in the winter that's kind of nice, or at least we're finding with our American Buff Geese, although there was a bit of a dispute earlier this morning, in the wintertime it's fairly easy, relatively speaking, to recombine everybody. So even though our chickens get along quite well, you still kind of end up with different chickens living in their separate quarters all throughout the farmyard. Whereas this time of year with the geese, we're fortunate enough to be able to amalgamate them. And as you can see, we haven't got around to butchering every single goose. And kind of relating back to our economics video, although it's driving up the cost per goose, it's not killing us. It's something that you can manage. So we have right now 12 geese. We're not intending to keep them all, but it sort of shows in principle that keeping a breeding flock of up to 12 geese is not necessarily going to drain you relative to what they will produce. And they're relatively easy to keep happy this time of year. Now, as we start to get into late February, their temperaments may change a bit depending on the weather, and we may end up having to look at ways of separating some, because they'll start to establish sort of a pecking order and be thinking about breeding season, frankly, which can start in March. So hormones may be on the rise, but right now it's relatively calm out here in minus 20 weather because they're not thinking about nesting just yet. Well, it's now afternoon or evening, I guess, and you can see some of the other animals would like in the barn. But really in the wintertime, outside of that little bit in the morning, this is about all we do. And yes, this is a couple of days later because on the cold day when we were filming them outside, we didn't get around to filming the putting them away at night. So we're going to kind of show you what we do for that next, I guess. So what we feed the geese, and we generally only feed them at night, this grain mix. Although when it's really cold out, we sometimes give a little bit in the morning. It just kind of depends. Is a mix of sprouted oats, barley, and wheat. And it's quite a bit heavier on the oats side of things because well, oats aren't quite as full of energy as some of the other grains. So we're going to go ahead and get that into their stall, which is right here. Of course, it's getting dark, so everything's a little bit grainy, but then we'll go out and bring them in. Everybody's kind of getting ready to come in. Geese are very good at routine. They are actually just about as good, if maybe not slightly better in some ways, than the chickens for putting themselves away. You'll see that pair that's coming here up front. They've paired off. That's our green hen, which is unrelated to everything we have, and a black gander, which we actually purchased last fall. But we're getting to that time of year where not everybody's getting along. So the vast majority of those birds in the back are basically all siblings and their parents. But this pair here is slightly ostracized, so we are kind of getting to that point. It's early February right now. Usually by end of February, the geese are seriously thinking about breeding, so we're going to have to seriously think about downsizing a little bit, i.e. actually getting some butchering done, and splitting them up a bit, because the enjoyable time of year when everybody can be together is sort of coming to an end, and we're starting to get a little bit of squabbling and fighting. Well, this group stays outside for a bit. I'm going to go ahead and escort those two, who are already making their way, into the barn. So this is a good example of a benefit to geese. They're very easy to herd, and although sometimes getting them separated is a bit of a challenge, once you do, they know the routine. They basically know where they're supposed to go. See if they make the turn. And they do. Of course, everything looks horrible because it's warmed up the last couple of days. And pardon the change in the lighting. Everybody makes way for the geese. Although they're usually not too aggressive with the chickens, they do have a certain presence about them. And though it's dark, there we go. They're in. Separated so that nobody gets in a serious fight tonight. And that's that. Well, again, it's a little bit grainy because it's dark in here, even with the light on. But one of the nice things about the geese is, as this chicken's going in to steal their food, the rest of the flock is going to do some timeshare on this stall, because during the day we bring one group of sheep in here. There's 4 ewes come in here, so the horses can go out and the geese go out during the day. And when the sheep go out at night, the geese come in here at night. So it works out quite well. And there is a little bit of bedding in there. They will chew on that a little bit too, which is kind of nice. I will say this too. Life with geese, or at least these geese, isn't a whole lot more difficult for the vast majority of the year than kind of what you're seeing right now. It's not a lot of time for the amount of animals and the size of those animals, and for most of the year it's pretty simple. Time for the rest of the flock, who seems quite enthusiastic about going in. We'll do another video at some point about methods of herding geese, because some very simple, I don't know, body language things you can do to get them to go where you want once they learn it. Instead of all your ducks in a row, all your geese in a row, literally. Now, we've switched up the routine because they don't always go in the same stall at night, but basically it did not take them very long to figure that out. So on that note, that is basically daily maintenance on our goose flock. Definitely another plus to geese. It's not a lot of work for such a big bird.